Hello there, it's Simon Lewis here with another video to show you simple ways that you can transform everyday tasks into technology using very simple things. In this video, I'm going to show you how to transform a paper-based GDPR consent form into a Google form. I'm going to show you basically how you can make this form into something more digital that can be managed by a school. This is particularly useful during times where paper is not being used in schools, and I'm recording this during the COVID-19 pandemic, where digital tools certainly are needed and probably will be for quite some time. Basically a form on a paper-based form is very similar to an online form in that you're filling in boxes, and what I'm going to show you now is the type of questions you can ask on an online form and see where they map onto a paper-based form. So I'm going to move to my Google form now. Okay, I am on my Google form now, and before I look at the Google form in particular, I just want to check the types of questions you'll be asking on a Google form. You can have a short answer, which is a one-liner. You can have a paragraph, which is obviously more than one line. Multiple choice questions, checkboxes and drop-down messages, that's for choices. You can upload a file, so you might ask for a document, and then you have different types of scales and grids, and then you can ask for a date or a time as well if you wanted to. There's more to it obviously than that. You can also obviously add things like titles and descriptions, images, videos and sections. So we'll look at that in a little bit. So back, I'm going to go to the paper-based form to see what we can replicate. I'm back at my paper-based form, so we have information here which we can put in, and the first thing we ask for is a family surname. That's a single text box. Google Forms isn't great for tables. However, you can find other form filling products out there. Now, none of them are free. That's the only problem. That's why I use Google Forms, because it is free and it's powerful enough to do what I wanted to do. So in this case, what I'd be doing is I'd be doing each one of these for each child. This particular one wants 4 children. So I'm going to just go through for child 1. Your surname is single line. An address would be a paragraph. Their class could be a drop-down menu, junior infants all the way to 6th class. Your date of birth would be a date, I suppose. Your PPS number, again, would be a PPS, would be a single line. Nationality could be a single line. And if you're a school that asks for a religious denomination, you can also ask that there. What you can do then is you can duplicate all those things on an online form, so you don't have to type them in 4 times, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. The next section here from this school, they ask for the details of a mother and a father. Obviously, schools that aren't of a particular denomination can ask for parent 1 and parent number 2, just in case you have same-sex families and so on. But anyway, that's not important for this particular video. This is just to get the information in there. So the name, again, and the address, if it's different from the above, so that would be optional. Again, nationality, then phone numbers are there, so there are numbers, and an email address as well, and we can do some stuff in there to show you how that works. And then there's emergency contacts, which are contact number 1 and number 2, similar type of thing there as well. And we're moving on to their page 3, it asks for medical. So if your child has allergies, so it's a tick the box yes or no. Now, if it's a yes, they'll have to answer information. So we're going to be able to add something there if they tick yes, which will be interesting. And then after that is details of guardianship, custody or access arrangements. So again, does it apply, yes or no? And if so, attach supporting documentation. So I'll show you how to do that. They do something here on school activities and tours. And again, rather than asking each time, they say for once. So again, it's just your name, the child and the class. That's something that can be done. Whether you're allowed to take photographs, record videos, give out birthday invitations, and then there's that medication and any additional information. And the thing about signing might be a little bit difficult. What I do in terms of digital documents, instead of getting people to sign it, I have a consent box which has to be ticked to say that they consent that they consent that this document can be sent, and that's kind of it. So what I'm going to do is we're going to really start off this Google form. So I'm going to move back to that now. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be toing and froing from that paper-based document and pasting pasting in information. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in the description of that form, like the first page. So I'll be back to you in a second. Okay, I'm just back again. I filled out the first page, which was the permission and information sheet, and I simply copied and pasted the information that was there. So we're going to move on to our first question, which was the family surname. And simply what I'm going to be doing is family surname, and it's a single choice, a short answer, so one line, and that's all I need. And that answer is probably going to be required because you can't really enroll without giving your surname. So I'm going to add that as a required answer. So once I've done that, what I need to do now is I need to get onto the children's details. And I'm going to add a new section for this because what I want to do is I want to have one for each child. And the thing is, what annoys me in online forums is that if you have child 1, child 2, child 3, child 4, and you only have one child, you don't want to have to flick through child 2, 3, and 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a section for child 1, okay? And child 1 is basically going to be... I'm just going to say fill in the details for your child. Sorry, we'll just do that. And what I'll do then is I'm just going to add those things in. Now, very similarly, to add anything to a Google form, you just click add a question and you fill in whatever it is. So in this case, surname, first name, and so on. So I'm going to come back to you in a second and we will get going on this. Okay, I've added my child 1's details. Their surname would be required, first name would be required, their address would be longer, a paragraph. I've done a multiple choice for their class that they would be in. A drop-down menu might be better already for space, so I'm going to maybe I'll change that, and Google will allow you to do that. So I have those. You can even add an other option if you really want to, but obviously you might not need that. In fact, you probably won't need that. You may have other different types of classes in your school, so you may need to add those in. You've got the date of birth, which I've done as a date. Your PPS number, which is a short one. Now, I haven't made that required because some families may not have got a PPS number when they're filling this one out. So that's the only one I didn't make required. Nationality and religious denomination as well, because this school requires that. Now, rather than basically copying that out again for child 2, child 3, child 4, what we can do is we can actually duplicate this section completely. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up to child 1 and look at this. And then I'm going to duplicate that section. And what will happen is, underneath here, I will have child 1 again. So all I do is I change that to child 2. And I've noticed as well, the surname and the first name are fine. Now, does anybody want to write in the address again? I don't think so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it not required, and I'm going to add a little description to that. So I go to the 3 dots here and click description. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say if different from child 1. And that's that. And also I'm going to keep the class, I'm going to keep the date of birth, going to keep the PPS number and the nationality and the religious denomination because they could be different. I suppose you could if you want to, and I'm not going to, just do the same as what I did with the address. You know, that's fair enough. It just doesn't take that long to write a nationality whatever number of times. And I can do this for each child then after that. So that's what I'll do here. So we'll go back to child 2 and we're going to duplicate that one. So that will give me child 2, number 3. And then we'll duplicate that. And that will give me child 4 in this case. Now the thing is, I'll come back to this in a second, we can move on to the next section. So we'll go back to the form to remember what that section actually was. And the next section, as you can see, is the parents' details. And again, what we've got there is the name, address, nationality, and all the rest of these things that are kind of useful enough to know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one similarly for the mother and then for the father, or obviously depending on the type of school you are, parent 1, parent 2, or contact 1, contact 2, parent guardian, you know. Anyway, every school is different, and it's up to you to decide what those labels will be. I've been asked to do it for this particular school, so I will use the labels that they have chosen. I will be back to the form and I will have that filled out. Now, I'm just finishing off the email address, which is the last piece of information if they're looking. So this is the mother's details, the name, the address, the home phone number, work phone number, mobile phone number, other phone number, and email address. A lot of phone numbers. I just want to show you something called response validation when it comes to forms. So I'm going to look at the phone numbers one, and you'll see if I click on it that I've created a response validation, which means that it checks whether that answer follows a particular pattern. And I want to make sure the phone number is always a number, so there's that there be no need for dashes or spaces, things like that, and someone doesn't type in letters or NA or whatever. And what we have here in the 3 dots is a response validation. When you click on it, it asks you for a particular validation. In this case, in a phone number, you want a number, so you can click on number, and there's loads of information here, but in our case, it has to be a number. And then there's an error message, and I've just typed in the error message that will come up if you typed something that wasn't. Equally, in an email address, you're looking for text, and the type of text you're looking for is an email address, or it could be a website, or it could contain particular things. So we just, in our case, we're just looking that it's an email address, and then if they don't put one in, we put the error message. And that's really it for the mother. So the other thing I should let you know, and this is I haven't made any of these required, because there are many families that don't have a mother in them, and therefore if there isn't a mother, then if you made them required answers, then there would be an error. So I haven't done that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this section so we can include in this particular school's case father's details. So that is that section done, and we're basically moving on now to page 2 of this form. Now these forms take a little bit of time to make, but once they're done, and you never really have to do very much with them. So that's that bit. So we'll move on to the next section and come back to me. Okay, we're in the next section, which is about contacts for people. Now what I'm going to do here is, because it's very similar to the mother and the father one, really, is I'm going to just copy the section for the father there and use that as contact 1, and I'm going to remove the bits I don't need. So we've got name, relationship to the child, address, and telephone number, mobile phone number. So I'll just do that, relationship to the child, if any. I have to remember that. So what I'll do now is, once that's done, I'll copy the section again for contact 2, and then we'll move on from there. So I'll be back to you at the form. Okay, we're back at the form now, and I'm looking at medication and allergies. So there's a couple of things that we need to do here. The main thing really is this description here. So medication and allergies. So I'm going to copy this here, and it's a new section. So what I'm going to do is I need a checkbox really for yes or no, and that's all I'll really need. The second thing though is if they tick yes, I want to bring them to another section which gets them to fill out this. And if they don't, that it doesn't. So I'm going to show you how to do that in kind of a different way. I'll come back to it near the end, but I just wanted to show you what I'll be doing first. Okay, so medication and allergies, and back to the form. Now, so we're back to the form, as I said, and we are going to create a new section, and I'm going to pop in the description there. So medication and allergies, which is the title, and the question is here, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm not going to bother with this section. If you've answered yes, please provide details on page 4, because it's not necessarily an online form. But in this section, all I need to do is ask that question. And the question is, does your child have any medical allergies or medical conditions? And it's just yes or no. So I'm going to go with multiple choice, and it's going to be yes, and it suggests no, which is useful. I forgot my question mark, and that's really it. Now, if they answer yes, they're going to move on to this next section, okay, which is to list those medical conditions. So details of medical medical conditions, or sorry, I've got details of allergies / medical conditions. And in this section, you'll be asking them to tell you a little bit more about those. And all that really is a paragraph. Please, I don't know the language of this form, I'll have to get it, but please give details below. And it's a paragraph, and that's kind of it, and that will be the details of the allergies and medical conditions. So we'll go back to the form just to make sure we have the details right. So I'll be back then. Okay, we're back to our form, and we're on to guardianship, custody or access arrangements. Now this is very, very similar to the medical ones, except this time instead of adding more details, they'll be adding a supporting document. So what I'll do is I'll copy the medical and allergies, but I'll make the change on the form that you'll need to make. So back we go to the form. So I'm back at the form, and I've duplicated this. So I'm going to the details of the guardianship arrangements. That's here. So again, the question we don't need at the moment, so we'll get that. So that's this section, we don't need the option, and the question is a yes or no answer. Now, if they say yes, we need another section, which we will have, which we can do here. Attach details, and what we want to do then is we just want to add a file upload here, so let us add that. So you add a question, and in this case it's a file upload. Now you can please upload supporting documentation. To file upload, you can allow certain types, now that can be useful. I'm going to say a document is a good idea, for example, but some might put an image, some might put a PDF. So I'm going to put those because they're the most likely ways they could possibly come. The image could be because of a photograph they might take of it. The document could be a document, and the PDF obviously is the most likely one. How many files are they going to put up? Well, you know, I would say a maximum of 5 is more than enough, and the maximum file size, 10 megabytes, should be enough as well. So that's kind of that section there for attaching the details, or attach the documentation is probably better. Documentation. So we're nearly there. We're going to find our next bit on the form. So let's have a look now. Right, it's school tours and outings. So again, in this case, this is very obvious. So I'm not going to go through this. I'm going to add the name of the child and the class again for that. Now, in my opinion, and this is where I'm going to deviate a little bit from the form, I think you could probably pop this into a single text box, rather than doing one for each child, that you would say for each of your children, do you consent to school activities? Similarly, for the photographs, do you consent to the photographs? Similarly for radio recordings, do you consent? Similarly for birthdays. And I kind of would leave it at that, really. I wouldn't bother having all this detail. And this is where forms can be, I suppose, more useful in condensing some information. So let me show you what that's going to look like on an electronic form. Now, I've added in all these questions. I've used a tick box grid here where I've got all the 4 things that I want permission for, and it's either yes or no. And do I require a response in each row? I surely do. I want to make sure of that. So I'm going to use that. I kind of simplified this a little bit as well, and didn't bother asking for a specific phone number. We already have that from above from the mother or the father section, so I didn't bother with that. The last thing we really want to do is the more information thing. So I'm just going to have a look at the form just to make sure that I have that right. So let me have a look now. Okay, we're here again. So we've already done the details of the medication and allergies. Now we need any additional information that the school should be aware of. So I'm going to copy the text there. And then finally, there's the consent bit, which is the signing. Now I'll show you what signing will look like. So we're back at the form. I've added a section, and it's just the final section, I'm going to call it. And basically, I'm going to be asking the question that was asked there, any additional information that we should be aware of, and that's a long answer. And then I'm going to use the final thing, which is the consent thing. Okay, and all I'm going to do for a consent sort of thing is, rather than signing, is basically a checkbox. It's as simple as that, really. And I can say whatever I want here. I consent to the above, blah, 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 so I'm not going to fill in this. And all I need in this option is I consent. And you can probably add in the description, by consenting to blah, 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 basically say that everyone who's named in this form consents to this, and that's enough as far as I'm concerned. Some schools may not find that's enough, and they may need to print this out and get the parents to sign it again. But obviously, given the times that we're in, that's probably not going to be possible. So that's kind of all I would do there. I consent, and once you're done, that's kind of it. So I consent is the single thing, and it's definitely required. If you don't consent, then you can't really come to the school. So I suppose that's really it. So that's your form. It's quite long, but it is a 4-page form, and a lot of it is children's details. And what I want to do now really is, first of all, I want to, there's certain sections, as I said, there's a few things left to do. First of all, we need to give it a title, so just click on title and it'll do it for you, and you can give it any name you want. The other thing is, I don't really like purple. Is all lovely and everything, but I may want a different colour. So I can go to my paint box here, and I can choose what I like to do is I like to pick a picture. So I'm going to choose an image, and I've saved some pictures, a picture for this on my clip call, which I found on pixabay.com. This will do, and you can drag up and down what you want to do. So this is my Pixabay, and what it does is it picks a colour, and what it automatically does is chooses a theme colour to match the picture. Isn't that clever? And you can choose the colour that you want. I'm going to go with green in this case, and you can choose a background colour as well to make it even nicer. And you can choose the font style, and you can make it all decorative like this. That looks very formal to me. Or you can make it playful for a primary school, which is kind of what I generally do. And as you can see there, it looks kind of nice. So that's the first bit. Now, the next section for me really is, you could leave it at that and then everyone fills out the form. But the reason I made sections is because sometimes you might not want them to go on to the next section. So for example, in this case, you have the details, so your family surname. Now, after section 1, you could continue on to the next section. Now, but if you are someone who has less than 2 children, you don't want to see child 2, child 3, child 4, child 5. So this is where we might ask some other questions. So we might say in here, after this section, we might continue not onto this section here, but what we might do is create something here which says, do you have any more children? So, do you have more children? And it's a simple question, yes or no. And what we're going to do now is we're going to basically go to a section based on the answer. So if yes, you go to the next section, which is child 2, and if no, you skip all the way to there and you go to the mother's details. So that way it will skip that section to where you need it. Do you have more children? Go to the next section. If not, go to the mother's section. So that's quite easy, and you can fill that out for child 2. Do you have more children? And the same thing. So I'll do that, and I'll be back to you in a moment. Okay, I filled that out for child number 3. Now, after child number 4, basically this is all it gave you, lasted till that you have a maximum of 4 children to come to this school. Now, you can add more and more children if you want to, but really it's probably not necessary. Next, you go to the mother's details, so that's fine. There's nothing really there that we need. We can continue on to the next section. The father's detail, again, you can continue to the next detail. Contact 1, you can go through that pretty easily. And contact 2, you can go through that pretty easily. Now, next is the medical needs. Now, does your child have any allergies or medical needs? So if they said yes, so again, we click on our 3 dots, go to a section based on the answer. If yes, go to the medical needs. If no, skip that and move on to the details of the guardian. Simple. So we move past that. Details of the guardian. So do they apply for your children? So again, same thing. Go to the section based on the answer. If yes, get the attached documentation, and if not, go to other consent items. And then that will do that, and then go to other consent items, and you fill out those ones, yes or no. Did you see that? I give my children permission for it to do the following things. And continue to the next section. So the final section, any additional stuff that you need to be aware of. I consent to, so I consent, and that's it. And basically, you've now filled out your form. What you need to do then is, there's the only important thing you need to do is how do you share that with people. You don't want to give them this full form, the form to edit it. So what you're going to do is you're going to send this form to people. But before you do that, you need to go to your settings. Click on your settings, You don't want to collect people's email address because you're doing that already. You don't want to do any of this. You don't want to do any of this or this. So what I'm saying is leave all these blank. It's not a presentation, it's not a quiz, so basically there's nothing to change in the settings. Now if you're a Google, if you're a G Suite school, there are other questions that have to be asked here, and one of the questions will be only allow participants from your domain to answer, and you definitely need to not have that in, or automatically collate details of the person. You don't need to, you won't want to tick that. So after that, all you're going to do is you're going to send this, and what I would do is I would click on the link. And this is basically the link that you'd be sending out to people. And I always shorten the URL because it's very long. And what I do is I can copy that. And when I'm going to send out to parents, can you fill out a consent form? That's the link they go to. And we'll just have a look at what that looks like. Here it is loading up. So here's our parental information. So it already knows it's me, so that's not important. My family's surname, so I can type in whatever that is, and I go. So let's just fill this in just randomly. Child 1. Do I have any more children? In this case, I'll say no, just to save me the time, and we'll move straight to the next section, which is the mother's details. Did you see that? It didn't go to child 2. The mother's details, the address is different, it isn't home phone number, so it has to be a number. So I typed in a letter there, so what I need to do is just the number, just the number, just the number, just the number. And an email address has to be an email address, so I'm going to try and type in an email address there and hope for the best. It's not really an email address, but I have the format of an email address. And then it will go on to the next section. And so we're on to the father's details. I'm going to, in this case, we're not going to have a father, so I click next. We have the other contacts. These all were optional as well, and I'm going to click next on that one, and the contact 2, and I'm going to click next on that one because I only have one person. Now it's on to medical conditions. I'm going to say yes to this so I can show you what happens. So it brings you to give your details below, and you give all the details below. So next after that, do they apply to your children? And I'm going to say yes again here, so it'll bring me to the section, and I can upload a file there, which I'm not going to do now. And then finally, do I give permission? So all these things show up. I'm going to say yes, 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 and hopefully that's fine. And you can say no if you want to. And then finally, any additional information, no. And do I consent? Yes. And then I submit the button. And what happens is a message comes up and you've been recorded, done and dusted. That's a very long video. I'm sorry it took, but it was a very long form. It goes through everything you might need to know. Once you've done it, all the information is there forever. To find that information, by the way, when you go back to your form here, what you need to do is you can see the questions and the responses. That's the one I filled out. So you can actually see a summary. You can see by question. You can see individuals. Responses, there's only one, or what you can do is you can open up a spreadsheet which will give all the information into a spreadsheet, which will be very, very handy, particularly if you are keeping all that information or need to do stuff with that information, upload it to a management information system like Aladdin or Database, or just for your own records and keeping it in one file. So that's quite a useful thing to have there. That's really it. That is form filling and GDPR and consent forms. Lots and lots in it. Hopefully it's useful to you, and we'll catch you again soon enough. Take care. Bye-bye.